Sovereign Digitaria. What do I mean when I say such a blasphemous phrase that you have never recollected or recalled, that is a familiarization to your, acoustic, ever invertebrate, sonic, cymatics inner system of how you even interpret anything, reverberate, the inner reverberation of just, unknown linguistics entering into your, sonic solaristic canals of, ever newly reborn etheric plasmas of your organs. So within that, what would I mean by like saying such a phrase that is just unfamiliar to the new rebirthing anything, the new rebirthing human, the new rebirthing, hey fam, have a good day, guys. And like obviously like the balance is always there, because these like places and these codes of conduct, they're looking for employees to like actually like follow the guidelines simply of just actually being like a positive person, because like within all these trainee webinars, like it boils down to like maintaining some form of positivity. And when you go into a store and that's not happening, that's very questionable, like how like just generally on an entry-level way of employees going into any work industry that there are, it's not necessarily like could be that, in the principles and the values and the moral systems they're saying they're upholding. So that's the thing with this whole thing, going back and rewinding it back to like, what am I talking about when I say sovereign digitaria? Well, digitaria just being, the divine feminine way and how we're using the internet, and the internet just being its own energy and form of it's already being something of like how it got birthed, and it's in different states and transitions based on how it's a thing that we're using. We're using this like thing of like the internet, and we're seeing like the psychology behind how nature's using the psychology of nature is using us and the internet simultaneously, but in a differentiated like way. And within that, and the feminine is like the feminine is like going towards who am I sponsoring today? This guy, sour guy. But the feminine is like it's on an unknown subtle underlying way on how like the internet was born, because it's a whole different range out of like the pre-materialization and the pre-solidification of like how the internet in itself, it has different components to itself, and it has different aspects of itself. It's like the internet in one sense, it's like a big database that it like is like that's like kind of like connecting to like something of like this this darkened type of like field of intelligence, a particular field of intelligence. But not to get, that's a whole different podcast, and I did that podcast like 2 years ago where I explained like I did this really unique podcast of how like the internet was like had its own like play different periods within different levels of time. But what I'm talking about with sovereign digitaria on a neutral feminine outlet, what I mean by that is like the digitaria of how it's like it's just like an energetic trend. That's what I mean by the divine feminine of the internet. It's like an energetic trend that we've been using, and we don't necessarily have to identify as the internet as the internet. It's just something a part of like the universe of the divine mother respectively, and how that through like its internal potency to its external potency, eventually throughout its course of its evolution and its different interminglings with the different combustions of the different elements, it's going towards an external place where it's more so identifiable as solid, and and other solid materials and elements, such as the different periodic table elements that are more so solidified, because obviously there's a periodic table of elements unknown that are lesser elements that are lesser solid respectively. So within that, the internet it's a particular nuanced niche thing at this particular level of the dimension, on a surface level dimension. And with that, you know, we're always using it as like just a tool, you know, on a neutral way. Even in the previous video, I'm saying it neutrally, I'm saying it generally, I'm saying it for purity. So if someone takes it personal, that's their absence of intelligence, and that's their loss and their fault of not having like a particular type of intelligence to see the transformation and the solution and the dissipation of the problem eventually for them. That would be their absence of intelligence. So that's how I'm explaining the previous video. But what is sovereign digitaria? It's recognizing how on a different level, in one context, the internet is being used and trajectorialized towards that which is sovereign, but particularly back from the bottom up to the top down. It's going to the top down where there's more options that are more accessible for the sovereignty in itself. What do I mean by that? Well, that which, like, you know, there's a prompter screen within whatever, you know, end link web page you find yourself on, and there's only so many options, where it seems like it's a low-key trick in one way, because the options are in such a way that it's like kind of like a no choice option way. And if we don't fix that little widget, that little context within the digitaria, you know, the internet, if we don't fix that widget within the digitaria internet of like how at the end of a web link, like, you know how it says like, here's a many example of many examples, you know, update software, or this link is that link, and there's no other option to actually, like, you know, use it to dismiss it or use it to say otherwise. So it's because it's not necessarily aligned and installed with the higher sovereign law of everything else, and a higher sovereign, you know, everything else. And then one byproduct of that, which in itself is like how the software is formatted, where it's limited. So if your format of the digital internet is limited, that's not sovereign digitaria. So unsovereign digitaria is using all of these like limitations to hide, you know, what data is relevant to us, because we should have like our data should be like sovereign data. What is that? You tell me. You know, it's like, because obviously that's like that connects to your like social security card, and that like that for that to be bargained and waged, that's a whole different, like, you know, thing within itself. So it's like, why isn't it like on the forefront of the internet? Why isn't, like, you know, options more accessible, just to put it in a standard way? And time crunch on this dot.